Welcome back to Co-op Radio 102.7 FM CFRO. This is Monday Brown Bagger. Again, I'm archiving this on my website of www.reginaldangusargue.com. My name is Reginald Angus Argue. For our next guest, we've had him in the past. He runs a non-profit private investigation out of the United States. His father was the late Dr. H Clyde Davis, who was involved with Windtalker and hand-delivered orders from Harry Truman. With that said, I'd like to introduce Steve Davis.
Well, good day. How are you today?
Well, thank you so much, Steve. You have extremely important news to share with us. Barrick Gold, which is the biggest gold company in the world, registered here in Canada, involving Brian Mulroney, Peter Munk, who won the Order of Canada, Bush Sr. used to be involved with it, Adnan Khashoggi, a Saudi arms dealer, is involved with it. I think members of the Saudi royal family, a few members of the British royal family involved with it. But you have some news to share about Mina Pascua Lama and Jorge Lopehandia?
I do. I was just in Vancouver just a few weeks ago, and when I came there to the border, the wonderful Royal Canadian Mounted Police basically took 45 minutes to ransack my whole car from Missouri of all places. And I finally got clearance, and I had a wonderful time coming up there and meeting with an interesting guy by the name of Brent Johnson. Brent Johnson had just financed a lot of money he'd loaned to Jorge Lopehandia to go down to Chile and get basically title against Barrick Gold, which he just did. I was up there with Jorge, and he was totally excited to be back to Vancouver. And so in this meeting, I basically allowed them to talk to my wonderful personal attorney back in the 1999, who basically gave a warning to Barrick Gold through my father, Dr. H Clyde Davis, geologist for the Illuminati, that you better come clean and you better pay up to Steve Davis. So, I've got some great news to share with you because there's a great public company there in Vancouver by the name of Mountain West Resources, Inc. Now, this company was gone public back in 1971 by a Mike Fitzgerald, and there just so happens to be a case just south of you there in Washington where he passed away last year, but before he passed away, a judge allowed $1.5 billion to be held away from his widow because of his connection with Barrick Gold, his connection with all the gold mines down in Nevada, amazingly through Peter Munk and George Bush Sr. and their key guy who was their attorney from Salt Lake City, Patrick Garver. And Patrick Garver just announced his resignation because, of all things, they're investigating this guy from Salt Lake City for lying to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Under oath, he said that Jorge had no rights. He said under oath that Steve Davis had no rights, and he just announced his retirement. What do you think of that, Reg?
Well, I heard that Jorge has legal title to Mina Pascua Lama. Before I have you comment on that, Steve, in the past, Jorge has come to Co-op Radio on Monday Brown Bagger Show and Hidden from History Show, both shows I've been involved with. Jorge has talked about how Barrick Gold has borrowed money from Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, and also sold futures of gold, copper, silver from the Mina Pascua Lama project. In addition, they've used Mina Pascua Lama as collateral to borrow money to open up other mines. Now, right off the bat, because they never legally owned it, and Jorge Lopehandia owns it, that right there is not only stock market manipulation on, worse than Madoff did, that's also banking fraud. That's multiple international laws have been broken. And you know what, Steve? The only people in Vancouver that gave Jorge a chance to speak freely and did not condemn him was Co-op Radio Monday Brown Bagger. He did talk to people from the Agora, and I hope in the future Agora will put out an article about this, because this victory is massive. It shows the people that listen to Co-op Radio that a little station like this can make a massive difference. That we can win. We the people can win if we just join together.
Well, what a golden way you can say it, because since 1997, Barrick, since 1997 to today, has claimed to the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States of America that they own that property that they know full well that Jorge owned, because they just paid his buddy, his lawyer, I think only $20. And the Supreme Court down in Chile basically says, oh, hey, you guys are in trouble, and we're the government of Chile is going to investigate the total operation of Barrick Gold for the past 13 years of stock manipulation.
Yeah, because what's happening here in Canada is our court system is so corrupt that even though Jorge has this in his hand, here's a question I have for you, Steve. What kind of message is this going to send about Canada to the whole entire world? Jorge's going to have to take this to an international court and show the evidence. If Canada refuses to adhere to the law of another nation, this in itself, I look upon it, if our court system says we're not willing to recognize another nation, that's an international violation. This is something that our politicians should be held accountable in the court of law. If not through Canada, let's take it to an international court and hold the politicians accountable for not enforcing the law.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, this all was triggered back in 1985 with billionaire Alan Bond out of Australia. Gee, Merrill Lynch and everybody got together with Alan Bond, and he came out there in Nevada on my property, but he also was down there on property with Jorge's family down in Chile at the same time. He acquires, this is billionaire Alan Bond acquires St. Joe America on the American Stock Exchange. Gives him top dollar. He goes public on the New York Stock Exchange in 1988, Bond International Gold on the New York Stock Exchange, $308 million. And guess what Barrick Gold is? Oh, my goodness, it's Alan Bond of the past. And tomorrow I'm flying down to Australia to meet with the dignitaries down there to show the connections of Patrick Garver, the attorney for Barrick for all these years, who just so happens to be a member of the Mormon Church and a front for the Mormon tithing money. This is shocking because the Mormon Church gets tax exemption all over the world because they claim that their money is for tax exemption for building buildings and temples and everything, and they're doing money laundering with Patrick Garver, Peter Munk, and George Bush Sr. Oh, this is going to be exciting, Reg. I'm sure glad your radio station is open to all this wonderful information.
Oh, we're always open. I mean, this is why it's so important for the listening audience to support this station and also support Monday Brown Bagger. But right now, I have a person from the BC Federation Party and sitting here right now. His name is Dallas Hills, and Dallas told me about an area of BC. I'm not sure if you're familiar, if Jorge told you about how Texada Island is being raped of all the natural resources.
Oh, he told me all about it. And being a mining engineer, I've actually checked into it. And you're absolutely right, Dallas. How are you?
Well, Dallas basically is going to tell us quickly about there's another area here in BC where they're taking down a whole entire mountain. Go ahead, Dallas.
Stuart, BC. It's in northern province of British Columbia. Barges just coming in, and they're loading up just rocks, dirt, whatever they got, into barges and shipping it out. And this has been going on for years.
Yep, they could care less.
So, what kind of money are we looking at, Steve? You've been involved with mining for years. I've heard anywhere from up to billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions.
Oh no, this is 300,000 metric ton of gold. 300,000 metric ton of gold has already been lodged in the Mormon vaults up in granite vaults up in Salt Lake City canyons.
So what percentage come from Canada?
Trillions of dollars.
What percentage has actually come illegally from Canada? Because Ashgrove and Lafarge are two companies. They're doing this Canada-wide. They're raping us Canada-wide of natural resources.
Well, they've got the right because the feds, the government in Canada and the U.S. and everywhere else look the other way and just let them do it because they qualified as doré bars. Doré bars can be up to 87% pure gold, and it's treated as dirt. No taxations by the government of Canada. So, oh, gee, you guys have opened up a big can of worms by what you just exposed up there right now as they're moving these rocks out of Canada.
Well, actually, I read through some reports, and actually it said Canada Customs, when these riprap, they're called riprap, gigantic boulders sitting on the barges, Canada Customs is saying, oh, no, that's just rock. Yep. And then Rick Conte from the Gold Commissioner's Office here in BC, because the 1995 Mineral Amendment Act, what it says is the corporation can step in, grab mineral, it's for public work projects. And at the same time, it scratched out the word minister and substitute the Gold Commissioner's Office. Rick Conte all of a sudden is a gatekeeper that shows up. Rick Conte has told me in the past that limestone is a rock. We all know limestone is a mineral because limestone in the province of BC had been taxed from the mid-40s all the way up till the 70s when the NDP party came in power, Dave Barrett. But you want to say something?
Yeah. One other company name that you guys need to know in Canada is Tronix, T-R-O-N-O-X. Tronix acquired Kerr-McGee. Kerr-McGee was based in Tucson, Arizona, worked directly for my father in the 50s and 60s for the Bush family back in the 50s and 60s. So here is Tronix, and they are the ones sitting on this $1.5 billion right there in Washington court on the guy, Mike Fitzgerald, who my father introduced all over Nevada with all this invisible gold contracts that the Brigham Young University gave a loan in 1969. So you guys are totally on pins and needles there with Tronics and with, of all things, this Mountain West Resources, Inc., a public company created in 1971. So you guys really have the top of the world for you. Yeah. The FBI, the IRS, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police are all watching and monitoring what we're doing, what Steve Davis is doing, because when I went up there just a few weeks ago, they wanted to know how successful I was, and I told them it was great success, and that's why I'm going to Australia.
Yeah, your attorney Paul was actually, he said that you're a person of interest up here. And this morning, when you and I were talking on the phone, when you first called me, amazing thing is you couldn't hear me, but I called back and you could hear me, and it's just amazing. But Dallas, you wanted to quickly add some other stuff. Hopefully, you've seen here in BC happening to tell Steve about.
Well, it's straight robbery, from logging to trees to the coal. All the profits in British Columbia are leaving our country.
Wow.
And that's a big issue.
We got to stop it.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. So the more people that are informed, the faster they can see the theft, because the theft on this province from resources is impacting everything. Social services, healthcare, infrastructure, schooling. The people that are retired now are actually coming back to work because their pensions aren't large enough to support them. We have some real serious issues, and it all stems to a political system that just doesn't work for the people. It's against the people.
Well, the whole key of this was your Olympics there. Back in 2002 when they had the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, they had all these secret meetings. And then here, just a little while ago there in the Vancouver Winter Olympics, they had all secret meetings as they basically had the excuse of all coming together for the Olympics. Baloney, they came to do exactly what you just described. They're dividing up all the spoils of British Columbia. It's startling how they do it.
Well, so far through Co-op Radio, Steve, we've been able to expose how, the kids, the troubled youth who end up in the Maple Center, what kind of abuse they go through. We've been able to expose, child trafficking. We've been able to expose massive amount happening here in the province of British Columbia. And I hope the listening audience, you've listened to some of the past shows, because I went back and listened to some of these shows, and I'm just sitting there going, wow, people should start to get sick about what's happening here. I took a look at the BC Constitution. Dallas and I were talking about in the past guest, and what the original BC Constitution, what it does, it has the Premier at the top, Lieutenant Governor just below him, and what happens, the Lieutenant Governor stamps all the laws in place, and then the Cabinet decides on what the laws is. Not anywhere in the BC Constitution, when they join Confederation, does it even mention the people. You take a look at the people are considered nothing more than peasants to carry out the bidding of the master, being the people at the top. And I look at it going, this is not democracy, people. I want democracy. I want to have in my hands the power as the people to dictate what's going to happen within the province, what's going to happen within my nation. This is my nation I was born in. I was forced into exile almost 5 years for something I wrote. And I learned in the United States of America, you love your nation, you live for your nation, and you die for the people of your nation. And when I came back to Canada, I swore to myself, I will never, ever, ever, ever again be driven out of my nation. This is my nation, and if the elitists want to get rid of me, you better take me out, because I made peace with God. I'm willing to use my mouth all the way.
Well, that's why you're so doing it, Reg. You're doing it so wonderfully, and that's why I'm very honored to answer whatever questions you have, because I've got the big boys now watching in. You should see what I did. I was just jogging this morning, running a couple of miles, and a guy came and made sure that I knew. He parked right next to my car and made sure that we're going to be protected. So I know you guys are going to be protected. So be very, very loud and vocal, and I know your people there in Vancouver will also support you. I surely do.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. You wanted to add something, Dallas?
No, that's about it. And it's excellent coming on the show. Thank you very much.